notices. So again, I'm sure people will be joining as we go through this meeting. Ultimately, again, this session will be recorded and will be posted on our website. Ultimately, the goal of this meeting is to really handle a lot of the pre-track information. In the past, the way we did our coaches meeting was about a half hour before the track meet started. So this is certainly a way of one of the things that COVID has taught us is that through these Google meetings, we can take care of a lot of things more efficiently through these meetings, and hopefully that will make things run even smoother the day of the event. So ultimately, our goal is really to sort of go through the various different processes that are involved with FIYA track and hopefully get all that information out. To the extent that you guys have questions, certainly we'll take the questions at the end of the session. I'm sort of anticipating for the next 20-25 minutes to go through a variety of things and cover hopefully the majority of the information that is needed to get us up and rolling for the track meet. So first and foremost, as you can see on our track page, we do have the 4 dates of our event listed. They are right here. So the first track meet is Friday, April 22nd at Culver City High School. The second meet is May 1st, which is a Sunday at Sarah High School. Then we're back at Culver City for Friday, May 13th. And then we conclude on Sunday, May 22nd, back at Sarah High School. So 4 meets for this upcoming season. So obviously, that's important for you to know if your team can make those dates and locations. So as way of background in terms of who FIYA is, we are a nonprofit organization that was formed about 10 years ago. Our long name is Foundation for Interscholastic Youth Athletics, and our short name is FIYA. And ultimately, we are providers for sports for middle school and below. And we have a menu of different sports opportunities. The one that we're meeting about and talking about today is our track and field meets, again, of which we have 4. You can participate in all 4 of them or just one, whatever works for your particular schedule. So again, I'm sort of going to walk through a variety of different things. The first thing that I wanted to point out as we continue to scroll down our track page, you will see that we have a button. I passed it already. Must have passed it. Hold on. Rules. There it is. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be going through. So if you wanted to click on that on your document, print it out. I think that's one of the documents certainly that you should print out and bring to the track meet. So here is the rules that I'll be going through as well. Okay, so in addition, of course, to knowing the dates and locations of the track meets, I want to just again walk you through what are our track meets, what do they consist of. So ultimately, we have 3 field events: long jump, shot put, and turbo jav. And then we have individual events, 5 of them running track events. The 100, the 200, the 400, the 800, and the 1600. And then we have 2 relays. So for all 4 of the track meets, we will always have the 4x100 relay. And then for the first 2 track meets, we will have a 4x200 relay. And then for the last 2 track meets, we'll drop the 4x2 and we will do a 4x4 for the last 2 track meets. In terms of how FIYA organizes its competitions, we divide things by age group or grade group ultimately. So for us, Division 1 is 8th grade and below. Division 2 is 6th grade and below. And Division 3 is 4th grade and below. So that's important to know because ultimately how you register and put your athletes in the event, certainly you need to know what grade your athletes are in and putting them into the appropriate divisions. Athletes must compete in only one division and always should wear their bib number that they will receive at the track meet. So athletes can compete up. So if you have a 6th grader, by way of example, you could put that 6th grader in Division 1 in an event, but once you just put that athlete in Division 1 for a particular event, they have to stay in Division 1 for all the events. Alternatively, athletes that are older cannot compete down. So a 7th grader cannot compete in Division 2. A 6th grader cannot compete in Division 3, etc. Okay, so you've got a group of athletes. You need to know how many events that they can compete in. So for your Division 1 and your Division 2 athletes, they can compete in no more than 4 events. Okay, so by athlete, you have an individual athlete that he or she can only compete in no more than 4 events. In each event category, by division, you can only put 3 athletes into that category. For example, the 100 meters. So Division 1 boys, you can only put 3 athletes from your school into that division, into that race, as well as all of the events that we have. On the D3 level, the athletes can compete in as many as 4 events, and there's a limitation for the turbo jab. So I'm gonna break that down in a second, but ultimately, Division 3 athletes, there's only a certain amount of events that are open to our Division 3 athletes. So on the field event, only turbo jab is open to Division 3, and you can put 6 athletes per gender in turbo jab for D3. And then on the running events, you can put unlimited number of athletes in the 50, the 400, and the 800. Okay. So again, this is D3 only, 4th grade and below. They can do 4 events, and you can do an unlimited amount of athletes for the 50, 400, and 800, and up to 6 for turbo jab. Again, everything I'm telling you is in the rules. So I think it's on page 5 that I was talking about. All this stuff right here. Number of events, etc. Okay. I think it's also important to know for your organization and prior to registering is how we run our events. So the order of events. So we've fine-tuned some things. We've made some adjustments. This is actually the first season since we didn't have track season for the last 2 years. This will be the first season that we will be introducing a slight variation to our order of events. So again, on the rules page, which I have up here. So we are still going to have a coaches meeting. It'll be very brief. After that coaches meeting is over, at the day of the meet, we will then be ready to start. And so we will start with the 200 meters. Okay. In all of our track events, we always start with the youngest group first, and then it goes girls, boys. So for 200 meters, that's just a D1, D2 event. So we would start with Division II girls, then Division II boys, Division I girls, Division I boys. So that's sort of how you read the order of events. Meanwhile, while the 200 is going on, we will be running the 50 meters with the Division III athletes. And again, you don't need to register online for that, for the Division III 50 meters. They just show up and we run them, you know, one after another, and knock that out fairly quickly. It's not timed. It's just in that one, it's you know, winning your heat is what earns you a ribbon. For all our other events that are timed, this is another important thing to remember and to instruct your athletes, is that it's not based on how you finish in your heat, that is first, second, third place. It's ultimately your time or your mark dictates whether you're in the top finishers. So very important to tell your athletes when they're completing their race, they might have a big lead in their particular heat, but they still need to run hard, run fast to the finish line, because they're really competing against all the other heats and whatever times that are posted from the other heats that are running. Again, going just back to our order of events. So after we start off with the 200 and the 50, we're basically feeling like that's going to be roughly the first hour of the meet. Our track meets generally are about 4 hours. So in the start of the second hour, you're looking at running the 1600 meters. Again, that's Division II and Division I only. Then after the mile is the 4x100 relay, and so here Division III participates. So it's Division III girls, then boys, Division II girls, then boys, and then Division I girls and boys. Again, we'll get to it when I start talking about registration, but for Division III, you do need to register online for everything except for the 50 meters. That's the only event that you don't need to register online. All the other things you do need to register online. And again, on Division III, there shouldn't be a restriction on the number of athletes. If there is, we'll fix that. Okay. So at the 2 hour mark, roughly, we then move to the 400 meters. Okay, and again, Division III participates. WF means that for Division III, that's a waterfall start. So roughly we'll be running about a dozen per heat for the Division III. For Division I and II, it will be a lane start. Then we go to our 100 meters, which is again just Division I and II. 100 meters is our only event where we take the top 8 scores and they come back after the 800 meters and run the finals. So the 100 meters heats actually lead to a finals later in the meet. So again, roughly hour 3 is the 800 meters, followed by the 100 meters. And then in the last hour, we are running the relays. As I mentioned, the first two meets will have the 4x200. And then the last 2 meets will have the 4x400. As you can see in both, it's a 2-turn stagger, which means for the first 2 times you stay in your lane. Thereafter, the athletes don't need to stay in their lane. Anyway, again, so that I think is important for you guys to know pre-registration, how the order works. Meanwhile, on the field events, you got long jump, turbo jab, and shot put. So we start with Division I boys doing the long jump, and then the Division II girls and boys doing the turbo jab. Roughly an hour in, the long jump moves to Division I girls, turbo jab, Division III girls and boys, shot put, Division I girls and boys. 2 hours, long jumps, Division II girls, turbo jab, Division I girls and boys, and shot put is Division II girls and boys. And then lastly, at the 3-hour mark is Division II boys, the long jump. The others are just sort of marked as open, just in case athletes that have been registered for the event but haven't yet had a chance to throw. They can come back at this hour and complete their field events. Okay. All right, so I think that sort of gives you a little bit of an idea and flavor of what we're looking at in terms of the meets themselves. So now it comes time to go through the registration process. So we use athletic.net for our registration process. So ultimately, if you look at, we'll find the page. Oh, it's page 2 of our roles. The first thing that you need to do, if you're brand new to FIYA track and you haven't used athletic.net, the first thing you need to do is create your school account. And ultimately, the registration packet, page 2, explains how to do that. So the most important thing to keep in mind is there is a verification process to that. So you cannot, on the same day, create your account and then start the process of registering your athletes to our track meets. So high recommendation here is, if you have not registered your school with athletic.net, do it today, do it tomorrow, do it in plenty of time in advance of the track meet, so that it gives you the 24 to 48 hours for them to verify it. Once it's verified, you then can begin the process of registering your athletes. So I'm going to take you to athletic.net. This is the page that would show up for your school after you've created the account. So you would see here, I have a track and field button on my dashboard, or cross country button on my dashboard. We also use this for cross country in the fall. But since we're in the spring and we're dealing with track, we're going to click on the track and field page. And so it's going to pull up the school page for this particular school. And as you can see, already listed here is a meet that has been added to the school calendar. This is the Friday, April 22nd meet. But let's say that I want to go to the May 1st track meet that we're having. Well, one of the ways of doing it, and there's multiple ways, I'm by no means am I an expert at athletic.net, but what you would do is click on search. In the search bar, you can type FIYA. And then if you scroll down, you will see, oh, FIYA meet. Yeah, just lost it. Hold on. Try that again. Back to my search tab. FIYA. And if you scroll down, you can see there's a FIYA meet on 5/22, a FIYA meet on 5/13, FIYA meet on 5/1. So I say, oh, I want the one that is coming up 5/1. So I click on that, and then you will see this Add Meet to Calendar button. So that's what you need to do. You need to add it to your calendar. Boom, you do that, and then it should be added. Okay, so you see now the button says register athletes for events. So again, I'm just going to walk you through a relatively simple process for registering athletes. For some of you guys, I know this is information you already know, but this is meant for the newbies who are joining. So click on register athletes for events. You know what? I'm gonna have to go back because we have not opened registration for that one yet. So let me find the one that's coming up on April 22nd. This one. And register athletes. Okay, so let's say, so you see here register by events, here's register by athlete. So let's say that I want to add an athlete here. So the first thing, after you click that, you're going to get select the grade level. So drop down menu. No one should be selecting 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. Let's say it's a D1 athlete, they're in 8th grade, we click that, and then we type the person's name. So we'll just go with myself here, male, and ultimately, I don't think the birth date matters it doesn't matter from a FIYA standpoint. I think from an athletic.net historical record-keeping standpoint, they would like to get the exact birth date. But I don't know, as coaches, if you have that information handy, fantastic. If you don't, I need date because it works. So 01/01, I'm going to go 2008. And we've now added John Muller to the event. So let's say now I want to get him registered. I hit him with the name, and now it tells me, oh, here are the events that I can join. So put myself in the 1, the 2, and the 400. There are my 3 events. Relay maybe to. Okay, so that actually, I think we'll need to fix this. So this is a good thing to walk through. It looks like the way he has it now is it can only do 3 events, but it's supposed to be 4. So, but you will see that when you get to your limit for this athlete, you can't do anymore. So it's pretty helpful in preventing you from making mistakes. And of course, having more athletes, you can do it by you can also do it by event. So you can click on the 800 meters. Your athletes that you've all entered will be right here. You can click on them, put them in, and it will also, again, if you've got 3 athletes in D1 boys 100 meters and you try to put a 4th athlete in there, it won't let you. So again, registering through this method really prevents any mistakes from happening. Okay. I guess let me stop right here and ask you guys. I guess you could maybe type it in if you have any questions, especially about the registration process. Give you guys a few minutes to type in a question if you have any. So let me add on the registration. So take the coming up Friday, April 22nd meet. The deadline, I believe, to register for that, I think we have it closing the night before. I forget, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., something like that on Thursday night. So we take it pretty much, to the end. So ultimately, one of the big issues in the past that occurs the day of the track meet are coaches wanting to make changes. So while I'm not going to say that we are, going to disallow it for sure, you can really cut down on the number of changes you have to make by finding out for sure from your team who's committed, who will be there, and then you can register them properly up until the night before into the various events. Therefore, the day of the meet, hopefully you don't have any changes. Because keep in mind, we have roughly about 30 to 35 schools coming. Everybody has just a couple of changes. That actually is a lot of inputting that needs to be done by our timer. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible. So to the extent that you get the registration process as accurate on your end, it will make the day of the event so much more efficient. Okay, so you've now registered. Ultimately, the day of, you will receive an email that will contain the meet manager. So that document you should print out and bring with you along with the rules to the track meet. The meet manager is basically your program that tells you what heats your kids are in by event. So it certainly will be a great roadmap to help you, navigate the day of the event. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on at a track meet, and some of you guys have 30, 40 kids, so it's a lot to juggle and keep track of. So hopefully the meet manager will help keep you on track. There also, of course, will be announcements being made, but the order of events, roughly when they're going to go. So it should just make everything, again, day of the event, run relatively smoothly and efficiently. Again, what are you bringing to the track meet? You're bringing the rules, the meet manager, which you'll receive by email the day of the meet, and any equipment that you need for your team. I would also say, bring a first aid kit. We will try to endeavor to have a first aid station there. That's not always an easy task to put together. So just as a backup, you should bring your own first aid kit. And then ultimately, when you arrive to the track stadium, you are, as coaches, you are coming to the clerk area on the field, and that's where you will pick up your track packet. And in that track packet will be the bibs and the roster, so you will know which of your athletes, what bib number they should be wearing, the pins to put it on the front of their shirt, and ultimately they should be good to go. So anyway, that's sort of the prep when you what you should bring to get there. So now you're at the meet. You've got your bibs and everything. You hand it out to your students. The one thing that is helpful, and we'll go through some of these things as we get closer to the meet. We'll send out emails, reminders, etc. But we only need to have the athletes and the coaches on the field. We don't need the parents to come and give Johnny a bottle of water or to check on Susie to see if she's okay. All that does is it makes our track meet inefficient if we have a lot of people on the field. So tell your parents that they should stay in the stands. Anytime they need to communicate with their kids, ultimately the kids should be checking in with them by going into the stands. So that will be something that we'll continue to reiterate as we get closer and enforce. Ultimately, we'll have some sort of process where we will be giving coaches some sort of pass to identify that they can be on the field, but only the coaches and, again, the athletes. Also, again, ideally, when your athletes are not competing, they should either be back in the stands or sort of in an unobtrusive way on the field. We don't really want the kids hanging around, running along the track or running across the track because they're excited that their classmate and fellow athlete is doing well or running. So they get excited and they want to run onto the track. So we're trying to prevent any distractions, things of that sort. So again, to the extent as coaches, we can communicate to our athletes that when they come on to the track, it should always be looking both ways because the track could be live. And then it's get across the track, get to your area. And if you're on the field, it's not playtime. It's really getting prepared for your meet. Again, we will have a meeting, like I said, still at each of the events. It'll be very short. It'll really just be to point out the lay of the land, introduce you to the starter, and just to the arrangement. But ultimately, we will have, when you come onto the field, there will be a clerking area. There will be benches for that clerking area, at least 4 that are in front of the table. So I'm just kind of sort of walking through some of these details that again, if you are aware of them and understand them, it's just going to help us be more efficient. But the benches represent a heat. So if there are 4 benches, it's going to be the first 4 heats of that particular event. So if you know your athlete is in lane 6, heat 2, then you would be telling your athlete to go sit on the second bench on number 6, because we'll have them all numbered where they should be sitting. So that's how the clerking area works, is we are trying to stage them so that we can take them to the starting line in the same order that they should be based on the meet manager. So you have that information. You will know all your athletes, what heats they're going in, what lane they should be in. They will get a hip number. Keep in mind, they might be in heat 2, lane 1 for the 100, but heat 7, lane 4 for the 200. So they'll get a new hip number, new order, etc. But for all the track events, the athletes all come to the clerk of the court. The only one that doesn't, the 50 meters for Division 3. And we'll explain when we're at the meet where they actually will go. But every other running track event always reports to the clerk, and the clerk will then organize them and put them, on their way. The other thing too, again, these are things that will probably be discussed at the meet, but when your athletes cross the finish line, some of them like to come back through the finish line. That's a no-no. Once you cross the finish line, you want them to go around, not come back through, because one, they could be interfering with other athletes coming through. Plus, they are getting in front of the camera that is recording the finish line. Again, track events report to the clerk. Field events, they will report directly to the field event when it's called. So if you're a Division I boy and you're doing the shot put, when that's called over the loudspeaker, your field events would go straight to the shot put, or straight to the long jump, or straight to the turbo jab. Again, we will, at the very brief coaches meeting on the day of the event, point out all these locations so that you can communicate them to your kids, and again, be having a very efficient meet because of all that. All right, let's see. So now we're competing. We're running through all the events. You know as well as I do that once your kids cross that finish line, one of the reasons why they're walking back is because they want to ask, what's my time? They want to find out what place they're in. So we don't have time for doing that. But we do have good news. We have that information that you, your parents, can pretty much get up-to-date results at the track meet. Again, this is page 6 of the rules. And if they go to westsidetiming.com, again, page 6 of the rules has this in more detail. They will be able to view results as they've been entered. So for the running meets, those tend to happen pretty quickly. The field events, they take a little bit more time to input. So that may not happen immediately, but certainly it will eventually be beyond there. Ultimately, when the meet is over, another email will go out with the results. What we say is the results are unofficial for roughly like a 48-hour period. This gives you as the coaches a chance to review everything. Every once in a while there's some discrepancies of some sort, but it gives you again a chance to review anything. If you see any discrepancies, you can contact me again by email, explaining what the discrepancy is. If we don't hear anything, then ultimately we assume everything is fine and the results are then final. So page 7 of the rules deals with roughly the how our awards and our scoring go. Again, you can read through all of that. Just a couple of high points. So Division III, these are our youngest kids. Them getting something right away is extremely valuable and important to them. So we try to give them their ribbons immediately upon completion of their events. So these are just for the Division III athletes. For your Division I and II athletes, their awards will come at a subsequent track meet. We try to do a little bit of a custom ribbon for them. So those will come later. But for Division III, if you're at the meet and your Division III athlete didn't get something, come up to us and we'll make sure that they get their appropriate ribbons. So again, how does the scoring work? This is it for Divisions I and II, boys and girls. It's the top 6 finishers in each event. They'll score a 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, or 1. So ultimately, with all the various different events, you add up those scores, and obviously that applies to a team score, and there'll be first, second, third place, etc. on the team end. We also do sort of a seasonal track champion. So again, that's something that you could read about in the rules, but it's just an additional way of trying to acknowledge a school's performance, not just at one particular track meet, but the track season as as an entirety. Couple other things again that worth pointing out and mentioning is this is the one event because of all the things that are involved in terms of timing and judges and facility, etc. This is the one event where we do need to offset our costs, and therefore we charge an admission to our spectators. So it's basically adults only that are paying. So if there are high school or below in age, they are free, but adults, we are charging a $5 admission per person. So I know in your life that you're focused on track, you're focused on your athletes, but to the extent that you can at least communicate that to your family so that they know they're not blindsided, that they're being charged. But that's the reason we do it. There's a lot of cost involved, so it helps us offset some of the expenses. Again, we're at 2 facilities this year, Culver City High School and Sarah High School. As we get closer to these events, they might have specific rules on parking, etc. So ultimately, my advice here at this meeting is to be highly respectful of their facilities. Make sure you're taking all your trash, the hip numbers. Don't just throw them on the ground. Find a trash can. The bottled waters that you bring onto the field, pick them up, throw them away. To the extent that we can keep the place as clean after when we're done than when we started, then hopefully these facilities will continue to allow us to come and participate. Because I tell you, this is the biggest challenge is facilities. We would love to have more than just the 4 meets, but it's very, very difficult to find facilities that are willing to give up a 4 to 5 hour time block in their track season. Okay, again, and ultimately at the track meet, there will be announcements made. Keep in mind, there's a lot of stuff going on. We do our best to make the announcements loud enough and clear enough so everyone can hear, but we're only as good as our recipients. So you have to be equally as good as a listener as we are try to be as good as communicators as possible. But our hope is with this meeting, with the rules, with the meet manager, understanding our process, that hopefully this will go a long way to making our track meets very successful. Any questions? Don't necessarily see everybody up on the screen, so I don't know if it's a high five or typing in a question. Right. Let's go. Terrence, go ahead.
Hey, John, welcome back and glad to see you, man. It's been a while.
Yes, indeed. Good to see you as well.
Yes, sir. I was wondering, because, usually I run just 7th, 8th grade and they all run Division I. So now I've got a 5th, 6th grade that I want to run Division II for boys 4x1. Now, will they only be allowed for 2 meets, or will they be allowed for all 4 meets to run the 4x1?
The 4x1 will be at all 4 meets.
Okay.
It's the 4x2. Yep, the 4x2 will be at the first 2 meets only, and then the 4x4 will replace the 4x2.
Okay. So my last question is, with the 100, I already know Division I, but Division II, since it's my first time, will they run just like Division I? Like they line up on the benches and then they go over and get ready for the heats?
Yes. and the top 8 will come back to the finals.
Gotcha. Thank you,
Yep.
John.
Yep. Sam, I think you had a question.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that was an accident. That was
Oh.
a different reaction. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good, though. Thank you.
No worries. Anybody else have any questions? I think Mallory, I think you're on this call. I think Eugene, you might be on this call too. Is there any information that maybe I missed or?
I don't think so necessarily. I did send in the chat the link. It's on the track page as well. If you keep scrolling and reading on the track and field page on our website, we've created like the step-by-step descriptive instructions on how to create the athletic.net account and then how to register your athletes and all the stuff that John kind of went through. So if you didn't really catch on to all that, like right this second, it is kind of confusing at first, but it's pretty easy once you get it. We've written all those out. So if you're on the track and field page and you scroll down, it'll say, how to register for meets. And it's the exact same process for cross country as well. So that's why it'll mention cross country and track and field for FIYA. So same process and pretty simple. The only other things I was going to say, so I also have coached in FIYA as well for track and field. If you have, John was mentioning, no parents running onto the track, which is huge. We've definitely had some accidents where kids just ran on and collided with kids on the course. For the most part, we have people kind of standing next to those gates, kind of like our little security officers there, so that doesn't necessarily happen. But if you're like a one-man coach, I would recommend trying to get at least one parent volunteer to be your assistant for that day of track and field and it's definitely a plus if you have something like a walkie-talkie, because one of you being on the actual field, where the track is so beneficial when you've got, especially the little ones, the Division III kids, when they're calling out field events, especially like turbo jab, right, for Division III. Those little ones are not listening. They're going to ask you like, coach, is javelin come up? Like the whole entire meet. So what I would recommend is having both coaches or a parent volunteer and the coach having the list of athletes and all of the events that everyone is doing that day, so that when one of you hears that call, you guys can start telling your athletes to go down, because they do tend to forget to report for their event. And the last thing we want is for a kid to be present at the meet and to miss their event. So we try to give everyone that heads up as far as when the next event is coming up, but it's kind of on you to have that communication with your people in the stands and then like your athletes on the field. I feel like there was other pieces of advice that I had as far as that's concerned, but it's kind of a lesson learned once you go through that first meet and it's been a while. The other thing I would note is you always get parents, because a lot of these kids are multi-sport athletes. You get a lot of parents asking, okay, my son's running the 400-meter dash and that's it. What time does he really have to get there? You technically don't know that, the answer to that, because we go off of, how long the meet's taking. We might have 400 athletes in one meet, and then the second meet of the season, we might have 500 athletes. So it's going to be a little bit longer. So what I would do is the first meet you go to, try to maybe take notes on what time it was when we started certain events. So that way you could tell a parent at least like, I'm not positive what time that event's going to start. It goes based off of when we started the meet, but last meet, the 100 meters started at 2:00 or whatever it might be. That helps a lot. So that's kind of my 2 cents, even though I'm the kind of coach that asks all the athletes to be there at the same time so we can warm up and whatnot. But I totally get that there's conflicts and kids show up at whatever time their race is. So that would be my advice on that.
Yeah, thanks, Mallory. That's helpful. I think, again, going through those rules is important, but let me highlight some things that always comes up. So your elite athletes, they run with spikes and spiked shoes, but that is not allowed in FIYA. No spikes, no spiked shoes. Very important. to let that be known up front. So that's one. On the field events, again, they're going to report directly to the field event. We of course provide that equipment. So the turbo jab, we have them. They're for the D1 boys, it's the 400 grams that they would be throwing. Everybody else throws the 300-gram turbo jab. But for your purposes for practice, you might want to, get a 400 and a 300 if you have athletes doing that. Same with the shot put. We again will supply the shots. The boys Division I, they use 8-pound shot, and everybody else uses a 6-pound. If you have relay teams and you don't have a baton, we have extra batons, so that's not a problem. Also, I don't think I mentioned it, but you can, in our system, you can register 2 relay teams. Okay, so Division I boys, you have 2 relay teams. That means 8 boys that you want to put in there. What you are designating, and I'm not quite sure if it comes out this way on athletic.net or not, but when you register, you are registering an A team, and that's the team that gets scored points. The B team can still run, they will still be timed, but they will not score points. So as another way of an example of this, your A team runs and is DQ'd. Your B team runs and they do fabulously. You cannot replace your score with the B team. B team from the outset is a non-scoring team. The A team is the scoring team. Those are for schools that want to, get some more of their athletes involved. So we do allow you to do 2 relays, but you have to designate one as a scoring. All right. Another thing that just comes up, just again logistically, another reason to be accurate on your registration is that's how we charge you. We charge you based on your registration. So say you've got 50 athletes, but at the first track meet, only 30 are going to register. So put the 30 into the meets that are going to register. Don't say, oh, I'm going to put all 50, because you never know who might show up. You're going to be charged for all 50. Okay, so only register those who are going to show and those for whom you want to pay for. So that's the other big tip that I wanted to make sure that you knew at this meeting. With that, I think we're good, unless, again, any more questions? All right.
I just have one quick one, John.
Go ahead, Terrence.
I know the last time we ran, oh my God, I remember my boys waiting all night to run the 200. So why the switch to that being first instead of the last, like the last time?
Good question. Ultimately, because we felt strongly that 201 is a very exciting race, and we felt that track should emphasize the faster races first. So it's actually more pressure on us to start with the 200 because there's a lot more manpower involved in that. But that's why we feel like with all the stuff that we were doing in pre-meet prep that day of the event, your Division II girls athletes that are the 200, they should have their butts on that bench once that coaches meeting is over, because we're ready to go.
Gotcha.
And it's going to go that way. So over the course, I've been doing track meets for 15, 20 years now. And that's one of the things that people have commented is that they lose their 200 athletes because we put them at the end. So I figured, you know what, let's put them at the beginning. and highlight more of the fast events than the long events. And Mallory is our mile expert, so she's okay too that we've bumped them a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate it because my kids are asking me right now, you know, which is which, and I showed them the 200. So I have about 3 that want to run the 200. So they're excited.
Awesome. All right. Anything else? Everybody good? Okay. So again, ultimately, this recording will be posted. Anything that you missed, didn't catch, feel free to review it. Obviously, coaches that weren't here, they should be reviewing it. And then day of the meet, bring your meet manager and your roles, and you should be set. All right, guys. Thanks so much. See you in about a month.
Thanks, guys.